Okay, well, I'd like to introduce the re-elected Mayor, Councillor Louise Crawford. Congratulations.
I didn't think I'd get here, so it's very exciting to be having this interview with you.
That's great, Louise. So, look, tell us about what you think the messages that the council's heard through the election.
I haven't done the nitty-gritty analysis. It seemed like there were some really unusual voting patterns, and it was different in every ward. So I do think the move from the multi-member wards to the single-member wards has had a huge effect, and the turnout wasn't great, I have to say, which is always disappointing because we want our community to vote. The macro trend across many councils, and I think you could probably say it here, seem to be towards independence. They may be members of parties, but they weren't running endorsed as parties by parties, although there were quasi-parties running. So the PEP and the ROP and all of those. So they were operating like parties, but technically not political parties. So very, interesting. So, and I think that the other thing was away from incumbents. The vote was towards independents and away from incumbents, I would say. I feel I didn't honestly think I'd get back in.
Well, you actually ended up being quite comfortable at the end, though.
At the end, but not in, it was a three-way in Elwood. And look, some good candidates in Elwood. So I guess that's a reflection of we were really lucky in that ward. To have good options for people. So
you've had your first sessions with the council as a group, doing your inductions. So what's the early feedback from that? How did you feel as a group?
What was pretty exciting about this group of people is everyone's very keen and eager to get going and to make this council work. And so we did a lot of team building as well as our mandatory induction units. And people wanted to step up and take people as they are and really work together for our community. So there was a real sense of how do we work as a team together? Because it's actually about the community, not about us. So I have to say, and the thing that I like to point to, those few days on the VLGA podcast, they happened to mention that we did seem as a councillor group on video quite collegiate early on in that one special meeting last week. So I think that's a good sign. I think it was a good start, a really good start for this group, because there's a very, broad range of people and a lot of unknowns as well, in terms of where they sit and what they bring to the table.
And is that recognised in having you and Brian as the mayor and deputy? What's that about, that selection?
I think it's just who wants to put their hand up, Greg. I don't think I think there's probably I think mayoral elections are always much more just who wants it than anything else. And I don't know that it was meant to be a broad stroke. I don't know who everyone else voted for, so I can't speak to their intentions. But
okay, so it's a secret ballot amongst you.
Yes, it's a secret ballot. So I'm not clear. Yeah, I think it's a good mix. It's a good mix to start with. But I'm not sure. I think sometimes it's just about who wants to put their hand up, who's got time, who's got energy, who's got interest.
Okay, well, that's a good segue. So you've been mayor before, you're back again. So, what's driving your interest to be the mayor again?
Probably two factors. So when I was mayor last time, it was during most of really in lockdown. So I actually felt like I was a mayor online, not a mayor in person. Like I literally hardly did any of the fun stuff, I guess, with mayor, So I chaired meetings online. We actually didn't have a lot of contact as a councillor group. So there's one that I'm looking forward to that part of it. But I think the bigger thing is I see my role as to facilitate the new councillors' learning. Because I remember when I first got onto council, I'm so glad Bernadine stepped up, because that first year, so much information, so everything is new, processes, how council works, all that, and I feel like it's my turn to step into that role to actually help them, to where do I go, what does this mean, really basic. Here's the processes, here's the guides, and have a bit more of that historical knowledge of how council operates. So I really think my role is more service to getting councillors up and running.
Okay, well, thanks for that. So I'd like to move on to a couple of issues that came up during the election.
Yeah.
Now, one of them was a possible change to the frequency of bin collection. So Can you tell us what's going to happen with that?
Well, I guess firstly, it is a new council, so they have a decision to make, which I am part of, obviously, but there is a decision to make, and I don't think it's coming to us till next year at some point. The previous council, which I can speak to, that was always in the long-term planning phases, which most councils are doing because of the 30% tax increase in landfill tax today. And that's the kind of the state government's plan and policy plan, is to drive us to do more recycling, less landfill, using less waste. So it's actually the bigger agenda is to reduce our waste use for all councils. And that's part and parcel of trying to get people to recycle more, use their FOGO bins. So that kind of is the long-term agenda of most councils. This new council has to have a decision to make, though. They can change that direction.
And they'll do that in the renegotiation of the new contract?
No, I don't know if that is part of it. I'd have to check on that one. I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I think it's more just a waste direction as opposed necessarily to the contract, because I think the contract has clauses that allow you flexibility.
So before people panic, the point is that you're predicting that there'll be less waste because people are doing more FOGO.
That's the idea, yeah.
So there'll be less to pick up to go to landfill, so therefore we don't have to pick it up as much.
That's the goal. Can I just say one of the things that we are focusing on in council now and in the future, I live in a block of flats, and my block of flats are terrible, and contamination is the big issue, right? So even if we're recycling now, often there's so much contamination it ends up going to landfill already. So we actually need to focus on, particularly in multi-unit dwellings, get people to do the right thing. I'm the person that puts the signs up at the back of my building. No plastic bags in the recycling bin. So actually right now, the biggest thing we can do is focus on contamination before that decision, because it's ending up in landfill anyway. So there's kind of a couple of steps.
Yeah. So if people get to separating their stuff, it would make sense to pick it up, the landfill less.
Over time. But I think the big thing is the educative, getting people to change behaviour before you probably can get to that point. And we're not there yet. I'll be straight with you.
Yeah, okay. So the other issue that came up during the election was the future of the two supermarkets in Carlisle Street, because council's looking at selling some land to Coles to help them do a redevelopment.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that came up for me in that was that Woolworths had done their purchase 5 years ago and hadn't done anything. So there's this whole question, are they land banking? What are they planning? What will the community have to say on it?
We are going out to consult with the community in the new year, because we're running up against Christmas now, so that will start in the new year, so community can give us their feedback around this. For anyone who doesn't know, there's a couple of pieces of the car park behind Coles that we own, but they're kind of not next to each other. They're all interspersed. So the piece of the land would have to be sold for Coles to unlock, presumably in a development. Yes, the Woolworths one disappointingly hasn't kicked off yet, but I think it's still in the time frame that we gave them when we did sell it to them. They haven't quite hit that penalty point yet, as far as I know. The challenge we have with Coles, I think, is that Coles has been actively buying up a lot of the shops around there, and Carlisle Street really needs an uplift. So in some ways, I can see how the community could be concerned. I'm going to put out, though, that my partner lives in Richmond and he lives near the Coles Traders where they did that same thing there, and it's actually fantastic. So it's not all doom and gloom. There is really good possibilities, as well as having to consider the downsides.
Yeah, well, the takeaway I got from the community meetings was that the uncertainty is putting off other local traders, so that's leading into a decline, but that things are going to get worse before they get better. So there's quite a deal of, we wouldn't want both the supermarkets to develop at the same time. It would be very tricky.
It will be very tricky. I guess that was the hope when the Woolworths, my hope that maybe they would kick off first and then Coles follow on, but maybe it'll be the other way around. I don't know. Yes, uncertainty is not good, and we need movement now, as you say. Let's not drag it out for the community, but get the best possible outcomes at the same time.
Yeah. So they were two things I noticed during the campaign. Was there any issue that you thought was really pressing people that came up for you in your door knocking and stuff, or from other councillors?
I haven't actually spoken to a lot of other councillors groups. I'm going to tonight, actually. But look, I'm really lucky in Elwood. People are pretty, obviously there's the canal, the cleanliness of the canal and the litter. That's a big one. And dog parks in Canal Ward. I'm trying to think what I've heard from other people. There is always the ongoing community safety and perceptions of safety. That was on people's minds. And look, a lot of people were saying to me, around renting and, and they said to me, look, I know that you can't put caps on rents, but that was an area that was of particular concern to them. Like that's the hard line for them.
Yeah, so I think the Elwood Canal people would appreciate some reassurance that council was, prioritising that. So.
Well, we are. So I met with ECAT and that group and helped set up a process with Melbourne Water to have community consultation and to think about what, if any, or what infrastructure could go into the canal or further up to help reduce the litter. That's a process that's ongoing. And because I've been in caretaker for a couple of months, I'm not across where that's up to. I'm going to find out more information. So very much on board with that. Litter, I've been at one of the Elwood ploggers and love our streets and beach patrol since I got a council. So I can't walk anywhere without picking up litter. So I'm very passionate about it myself. It is definitely on our agenda. I think but the challenge for us is the canal is not ours. So, and perhaps where the infrastructure like litter traps need to go is further in other council areas. So it's complex and like any wicked problem. But I'm definitely, the new councillors don't know enough about it, but I and Heather are definitely on board, and all the new councillors will get briefed soon, and I'm sure they'll be equally interested.
Okay, and one of the issues that I put in the last TWiSK was about some of the units that are in the Inkerman Oasis site in Grieve Street that are social housing that are now being sold by Housing First back into the private market. So did you know that was happening?
I've heard since getting back on council, obviously, and we've checked in, but no, I didn't know. But we have been, as I said, in caretaker for quite a period of time. Yeah, so...
Well, we'll keep following that as it goes through, because obviously the issue is if council really facilitated that to be social housing, and then what's the expectation of council for that it should stay social housing would be the question.
Yeah, and let me just look at something. I do think the understanding is as long as money remains back into the area for further social housing. I have to check the wording of the trust, but there is.
So it's got to stay in the municipality.
Yeah, the municipality.
You have to check.
Yeah, but it definitely, as long as the money's it's not being sold off and then nothing reinvested, is my understanding.
Okay, now today we're recording this interview on Thursday, but people will be looking at it on Sunday. You were blessed by the weather gods with a lovely day for a media event about summer. Tell us what that was about.
Yes, our summer management program is kicking off again today. Oh, well, on Thursday, because there's obviously by Sunday we're going to have had some hot weather, hopefully. I think all Victorians are, well, some of us are looking forward to a bit of heat. So the message is similar to what we've always done for the last basically 8 years, is you need to play your part. If you're going to come and enjoy our beaches, which we want you to do, come and do the right thing by everyone else around you, and that means no alcohol, particularly at St Kilda Beach area. There's lots of bars and cafes and nearby restaurants that you can go and have a drink, and no glass bottles. There's a fine of $198 if you get caught with glass bottles on the beach, and I think that's a much nicer spent in dinner on one of the foreshore restaurants than paying council $200 for bringing a glass bottle.
And there's still smoke. It's cigarette free too. Is that correct?
No, technically, I don't think we ever brought that in. I think other councils are, but less and less people are smoking. I've noticed that on the beach. They're more likely to find a vape down there these days.
Well, that's right. Well, I'll check those restrictions and I'll publish them.
Yeah. I'm 99% sure there's no cigarette ban. We've never actually brought it in, but it's kind of lessened naturally over time.
And the police were involved in Thursday's event?
Yep. So they were down there also speaking to how it's kind of a joint process that council works very closely with them on those hot days, and we've got processes in place and using our CCTV. So it's a very collaborative response, because we want people to enjoy it and feel safe, and that's the number one. And Life Saving Victoria was also involved. So obviously people being careful when they're swimming.
Oh, well, yeah, it's the people's space, our beaches, and we want them to be safe. So that's good. So, Louise, look, it's great to have an interview with you when you're coming in. We'll leave you to have a lovely summer break, like all the rest of us will hopefully have. And I hope we can do this regularly next year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd be up for that. That'd be great. Thank you for your time. And can I say thank you on behalf of candidates? All of your council coverage was very fair, useful. Your reporting was really great, especially because we have no other local media. So it really gave us as candidates, but also just very fair reporting and equal-handed. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I really tried to fill that space, and I got a lot of really good feedback that people were sending their friends who asked them who to vote for to it, because it was all there. So,
it was great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Greg. Bye.